leader who has a vision. See, it's very important that vision is put into place. And not only do you want to know what the vision is, but you want to know what the culture of that organization is, whether it be your church, whether it be a business, or whether it be something that you're associated with. So it's important that people, whether you're up under a manager or a leader, it's important that you pay attention. Uh, I happen to think that it's just like a race, it's just like a relay. You have to pay attention. When you're running a relay, you're not looking at the person behind you, but you're in a stance and you're ready to go. You don't know when you're going to take off. You don't know when the baton is going to land in your hand. You're not even looking at the individual. You have one goal and one goal in mind, and you have your hand behind you. And when that baton hits your hand, you take off and you go running because you know what your position is. It doesn't matter who's your leader, who's your manager. It doesn't matter who your coach is at the time. When you step on the track, my daughter ran track. I know it very well. I can tell it to you, the ins and the outs of it. Is that it doesn't even matter what coach says on the sideline. Right now, you're in the race. And when you hand over the baton, you know what your responsibility is. You know what your charge is. You know what our vision is. Our vision is to win this race. So it's just like that, whether you're in a position where you're up under somebody who's managing or somebody who's leading, you need to pay attention. So if somebody do fall away or somebody do get a sickness and they're going to be out for 6 months, are you ready to step up, take the baton, and continue to allow this organization to run? You should be. And if you're not, I don't even know why you're in the position. What is your ultimate goal? And here's the thing I'm going to say with the flip side of the coin. We can't always put stuff on the leader. You can't always put stuff on the leader because here's the thing: you were never paying attention when you were in the classroom. You can't blame the teacher for failing the test when you never took notes and you never asked questions, and now you have a test sitting in before you and you fail the test. Well, guess what? The teacher has been providing information from you. The leader is providing information for you. They're providing inspiration for you. They're answering questions. And so I tell people who walk close to me, I tell people, anybody, everybody who's associated with Universal Truth Ministries, I tell them to be ready at any time to do whatever is necessary. If I have to go over here, then you can step up and you can do this. If I have to be over here, listen, this is not a one-man band. It's not a one-man band. And so the ministry or the vision of the organization, it should continue to move forward. But the people who are in those positions, in those lower positions, I would suggest that you pay attention. Hey, Miss Daisy, how are you? And so Chocolate says, I have a question. I'm driving and I might lose you, but I'm going to ask, how do you handle when a man tell you, if you want me, then come get me?
You saw my whole body stiffen up.
Oh my. Chocolate says, man, y'all okay, y'all gonna make up for last week now. So Chocolate says, how do you handle when a man tell you, if you want me, then come get me? Different perspective, right? If you want it, go after him. If it's something that you're interested in, shoot your best shot. If he's not married with a ring and a wedding date, take your chances. What do you have to lose? If he's a single man and he said, "If you want me, come get me," I mean, I'm not saying you have to be provocative, but if he initially put it out there, if there's a mutual interest amongst one another, then y'all take the time to get to know one another. I wouldn't allow that to stop me because I'm a woman and he's a man. And that leads me to a question down here where it says this was another anonymous questions. It says that, what does it mean when people say, are you single? You must put yourself out there. Now, this was another anonymous question, which coincides with the same thing. Hey, Miss Charmaine, how you doing? Thank you for joining. The question that you asked, Chocolate, saying that How do you handle when a man tells you to come get me? Which coincides with the same question, which was an anonymous question that says that what is the meaning when people say if you're single, you must put yourself out there? Well, if you're single, then I say be open and be available. And so if you have a man who's a single man, now I'm not saying go and respond to a married man. I'm not saying go and respond even to a man who's in a committed relationship and he resides with his girlfriend or something like that. That's what I call a committed relationship. You live together. But if he's single and he's not in a committed relationship and he's not married, I would say then take the opportunity to get to know one another. And it doesn't matter if we're in 2021. I can recall when, I guess we were taught that only a man should approach a woman. But some of the roles and the responsibilities have changed as we have progressed in years. Women now are in, very high leadership roles, in the church, and um, it takes so much in the church, and so I kind of feel like, and some men are intimidated by a strong woman. They're intimidated by a woman who's in a high position. So in order to make yourself, I would say make yourself marketable. Make yourself marketable and be open. And no, he doesn't have to be the one who makes the first move. Like I've stated before, if all of the other obstacles are out of the way and answered, he's not married, he's not in a committed relationship, and things of that nature. I mean, worst case scenario is you become friends with people. That's how you become friends. Every person that you see, every person that tells you to come and get them is not going to be a relationship or a husband. Sometimes relationships happen by developing friendships. And so that's one of the things that I say, go ahead and develop friendships with people. It's okay to develop a friendship, with the opposite sex, with a male or a female. It's okay to do that. So that's my perspective on that. We're living in 2021, and it does not always have to be the woman have to be the man who always makes the first approach. I mean, men are shy just like we are. And from a male's perspective, I've had many conversations, with men and friends. I have a son, and sometimes men don't like to be turned down as well. And so they may have an interest in you, but your persona and your body language is illustrating to him that, no, I better not ask her out on a date. I better not ask her for her phone number because she's going to turn me down. Oh, so what if, you're saying in your mind, oh, I won't say nothing to him because he don't have an interest in me, he and shy. And then you have two people who really had an interest in one another, but no one never said anything. I will I will tell you more so we only have one life to live. And sometimes you may not get a second chance. And so I'm not saying be provocative or nothing like that, but be kind and be nice. And I want to say stop being so tight. Stop being so tight and stuff like this. Learn how to say good morning. How you doing today? Oh, where you get that from? That looks good. I think I'm gonna go have. Really? Where is that? Over. No, you got to be. No way. You got to learn how to have a conversation with people. You don't have to come on like I'm coming to get you. I want you. No, learn how to have a conversation with a person. Learn how to be nice. How you doing? It's good to see you. Compliment people from time. I like your haircut. That's a nice haircut. Or something of that nature. So. Just learn how to number one compliment people, and number two start a conversation, and it won't appear as if he coming to get you and you coming to get him.
Can I add to that, Pastor
Yeah,
Jakita?
yeah, yeah.
Okay, because I guess because of the type of person I am, but one thing that I do not find attractive is arrogance from either a man or a woman. So if he was saying that, like, I don't know what tone he was saying it in. Was he saying it like in a playful tone, like if you want me, come get me, or did he just type it? It's so hard when people type and send inboxes and chats to friends and stuff. And I guess for me, um, for me, and I totally agree with you about not being so uptight and stuff. So much so to where um you are told that that you can't have fun or even open to talk with the opposite sex, especially Christians. I think they have to, that like, oh, if they do so, that they're doing something really wrong, but they're not. How else would you get to know somebody? But me though, as far as if a man had told me that, I'm gonna be straight up honest with you, how the person that I am, and not that I'm uptight, just that I've ran into so many arrogant men in my lifetime, arrogant women too. So that's why I said I stiffened up. Like, how did he say that? Did he say it in a playful way, or did he? Because if he said it in a playful way, then I could understand. But if he said it out of arrogance, or his tone, I don't know if he said it or texted. If I hear arrogance from someone, I was like, man, if I get with you, will I be chasing you even after we get married all my life?
Well, Sharia got a question right there. It's a lengthy one too. I got you, Sharia. I'm coming right back.
Sure.
Sharia got one child. It's down in there. um, um, Now, when you say arrogance, I will say from my perspective, it's how you present yourself as well. Now I don't know. I don't. Everybody's not going to agree with me on this, but it's how you present yourself and how you carry yourself sometime and how people approach you. Even as being a Christian, before I became a pastor, as being a Christian and how I carry myself consistently when I will walk into a room, or I used to go and get my hair done out to the flea market and everybody be out there cussing, smoking, drinking, doing whatever they want
Hmm.
to do. But when they would see me, they'd be like, oops, miss, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
They would change the way they talk. They wouldn't, oh, we're
Yeah.
not going to do this round her. They didn't even know my name. Oh, but because of how I carried myself, men don't just walk up to me and just say, "I just want to jump into bed with you," because I don't carry myself like that. And so I'm saying to male and female, depending on how you carry yourself, sometimes is how people are going to approach you. Now, even with someone who you may say it's not what they say, it's how they say it. Now that can be a conversation piece right there. Right there, you can start to have a conversation. Say, you know what? You got a cute smile, but I don't like how you just came at me like that. So I mean, it's. I'm just trying to teach y'all how not to be so tight and things of that nature, but learn how to operate within the attributes of what Christ has given us through love and patience and kindness and things of that nature. So just because somebody said something that was maybe derogatory, or they was arrogant or something of the nature, it's still a conversation piece. It's an opportunity to kind of, say to someone that, I remember having these conversations. I said, you know what you did to me, I was offended by that and I was really hurt by that. And I would recommend that the next woman that you see, that you don't do that to her, because that really hurts women. I remember having those conversations. And so it doesn't matter how they approach you. I think it's worth having a conversation. Everybody's not going to approach you just the way you want to approach you. Everybody's etiquette is not on the same level. Everybody's language is not on the same level. So I think you're putting people in a box when you're saying, "Oh, he didn't approach me correctly, so I'm not going to respond to him because he not talking to me." Now, I remember back in the day when people would call you cuss words and stuff like that. Immediately, I say I'm not responding to that, because that's not how my mama. I'm not responding to that. That type of stuff right there. But I think there's a couple of things. It's a conversation piece, and then number two is how you carry yourself consistently. Now, Sharia says, now correct me if I'm wrong. She say, but the Bible says, go ahead on, baby girl. Oh, Vita,
I already know what she finna say. Go ahead, Sharia. Say it, Pastor Keith. What she said.
she say, but the Bible says that you are single until you are married. That is true. And she say, with that being said, I have heard and seeing people participating and doing single things while in a committed relationship. So, if both parties are on separate pages with this, how do you operate without offending the other party who does not agree with this? Now, this is going to be like a two-part. Now, see right here, now, like I corrected that, you are single until you get married. Now, there are people who say, hey, babe, hey, wife, they call each other husband, wife, and they're not married. Now, that I think that's a joke or something like that. Sometimes it's used in a comical matter. But literally and technically, you're not married until you say, I do, and you purchase a license to marry, and you are married either at the courthouse or an appointed person who marries you, okay? So now, if you're single, if you're doing single things while in a committed relationship, that's called cheating. Well, let's back it up. Let's back it up. I don't know if we can call it cheating if you're not married to the person. Now, if you're committed, that's a different type relationship. That's not a marriage. And so, even though you're in a committed relationship, you're still not married. That woman and that man is still free to marry somebody else. Oh man, it's getting hot up in here, y'all. I'm trying to say they're free to marry somebody else, even if they're in call themselves in a committed relationship with someone else. So when they start to do that, there's no way around not offending them. I think when you address the issue or the concern, Sharia, I think a person or an individual has to choose what they will tolerate and what they will not tolerate. When you say you're in a committed relationship, okay, when you're saying, Vita had me on the other phone over there.
Yeah, I'm trying to listen at the same time too.
When you're in a committed relationship, I think that there has to be an agreement. Let me tell you something. I've had some conversations sometimes where I remember in early on, 2015, 20 years ago, and having a conversation with a man. I asked him, was he married? And he told me he was not married. But I later found out that he had a girlfriend. So he told me, well, you didn't ask me if I had a girlfriend. I said, okay, you're right. I couldn't be mad. I asked him, was he married? He wasn't married, but yet and still he had a girlfriend. So I think clarification in our communication and begin to stating what I will tolerate and what I will not tolerate. If I am in a committed relationship, I am not going to tolerate sleeping with somebody else and having all these other chicks and things of that nature. But if that is not addressed and you allow the person to continue to do it, then they will continue to do it. Now it's not on the person, it's on the individual, and you have made a choice that you're going to tolerate that. Now, I mean, I don't know, everybody may not agree with that response right there, but was I specific enough to address that there's an understanding that needs to be mutual between the two people. Now, if two people are not going to agree, now they're not married. Now, remember, when the two becomes one, the man leave his mother and father, and he leaves and cleave to his wife, right? So let's say this: they're not married, right? But they're committed and they're living together and they're working towards marriage. So I think the open and the honesty has to be between both individuals, that it is mutual, that we will be committed to one another. I don't expect for you to go out and get your needs met by anybody else. That is something that I do not plan to tolerate. And so I think from the beginning you have to be open and honest of what you're willing to tolerate, what you're willing to deal with in that relationship. And here's the problem. I think we talked about infidelity a lot. Here's the problem is that when you begin to accept some things in a committed relationship, you get married is not going to change it because that's not going
You
to change.
said you said this a few weeks ago. You said you're gonna just get a little bit more than what you said once you meet somebody, whether they know Christ or not. What you get If they get better, it's only probably going to get what just realize and recognize that whoever you're dealing with, they're not going to change too much more from who they already are. And I think sometimes women in general think that a wedding ring will automatically change a person and how they are. And I can tell you this: after my first marriage, I had little to no tolerance for foolishness, and I still don't. But I don't have to put up with foolishness because I'm with a husband who has little to no tolerance for foolishness. But we had this talk when we initially started dating. We had this talk about what we want from the other, what we went through in the past, and what we were willing to deal with and what we were not. So, as far as me, I know that you are single until you're married, but once we began to have that conversation about dating and we began to come into a committed relationship, if you do something, if I were in that role again, in those shoes again, where I was dating my now spouse and they began to cheat on me, I know my mindset. I knew my mindset. Um, it would be like, I'm done. Whether my heart was broken and I had to cry for a while or not, I'm done. Because I understood and I know what it felt like to be in a relationship where the other person was living a single life and wanted the wife to live a married life.
Well, I will say, even in talking of my daughter Sharia just asked that question. I remember in college, Sharia had a little boyfriend that would come over, and when I would cook Sunday dinner, I would say, Sharia, you have poor skills. Why don't you go in there and fixing something to eat? And I recall her saying this to me. She said, I'm not playing wife before I become wife. That stuck with me. I said, man, that's really good. She said, I'm not playing wife before I come wife. I said that to say this. Many of you go too far in your dating. You begin to play husband and wife before you even get to a point of somebody who's making a decision. You go way too far. Some stuff you just gotta leave it alone. And you begin to slow up. I know anytime we fall in love, we just want to do. We just want to do. We just want to jump. We just want to do. But let's hold up. If it is not reciprocal, put your brakes on. Pump your brakes. Pump your brakes. Back up a little bit, because you wind up going way too far and you find out in 2 or 3 years that the relationship doesn't work and he moved forward and married somebody else, and this is vice versa. And so if you're dating, hold up and stop playing a wife and a husband role. Have fun. Become friends. Make sure that what you're doing is mutual. And raising daughters and goddaughters, I've told them this for many years. When you begin to have conversations with a man and you begin to see a man, take money and sex off the table. Take money and sex off the table and see if there's anything else in that man or on that man that you can be satisfied with. Because listen, money and sex tend to sway your opinions. You be swaying way over here. Money and sex tend to alter your opinion. So take money and sex off the table and understand that who he is to you right now in your dating is who he's going to be for you when you marry him. And if he marry you, I tell you that a lot of us are carrying a lot of hurt and a lot of baggage. I have a couple of hats and t-shirts to prove it as well, trying to move forward, trying to do everything that I want to do because I'm so in love with this person. But this person, have you ever told a person that, have a person ever told you, I love you, but I'm not in love with you? That's what started me to pumping up my brakes. Pump, stop your brakes, hold up. I love you, but I'm not in love with you. Basically, I love the things that you do for me. I love how it makes me feel, but I really don't love you enough to where I would make a commitment. I'm just trying to, that final commitment is to change your last name, your status of living, and your address. Y'all better hear me today. Let his actions measure up to his words, and he's going to change your last name, your status of living, and your address. Yep.
And I like how you said, and your address, because
And
a lot of times, a lot of these women get married and their address doesn't change. His does, from mama to their house.
I'm not going there. I'm, I'm not.
But can we talk about that? The woman who's supporting that man and
I,
they not married and they're driving her car all day and she's going to work all day and they're dropping her off and then they're waiting to be picked up by their boyfriend, their man, who can't offer her even money.
I will say this. I don't know how they do that. I'll be honestly, even when I was out there doing what I was doing, when I got up and went to work because I was a working woman, I didn't leave a man laying in my bed. He'll come back when I got off from work. But I didn't leave. I If I have to go to work and my children have to go to school, you need to be doing something too. And I think ladies need to develop an attitude that, you know, if you're in your dating process with him and he doesn't work, and he's always taking you to work and picking you up in your car, and you're paying all the bills, and you putting the gas in the car, and you paying for all the dinners, I don't know what you expect to get if he marry you. And what example are you setting for your daughters?
Yeah.
The biggest thing is you're showing your daughters how how a man should treat them. So they grow up. We got a cycle going on because the daughters grow up and say, "I saw my mama do it. I saw my grandma do it. It must be the right way to do things." No, that's not right. And so if you can't consider yourself to now here's the thing. When you talk, I'm just it's my perspective. Y'all please don't get upset with me, right? Y'all got Let's Talk Life going off today. Listen, it has to be about money or penis, or sex when you have forgotten everything else. You're a hard working lady. You have a career. Not only are you hard working, but you have a career, and you have decided to connect with somebody who's not even working. It doesn't take a rocket scientist to figure that out. But once again, I touch my nose and I don't bother with people's business. I tell people to make a choice and a decision that you can live with. But I can assure you that your daughters and your sons are watching you. So you're wondering why they go out and beat on women, and you're wondering why they treat women and men the same way. It's because they have watched you do it, and their friends are picking at them when they go to school. You don't know what the children are going through, saying stuff like you got two daddies and two mamas, all kinds of stuff. Children are, they're stressed out because of, and I'm not saying whatever choices you make on your life, do what you want to do. But I don't think that you have to do everything in front of your children. I don't think that you have to do everything, in front of your children. There was a time I haven't always lived the life that I'm living, but I lived a life before my children that they didn't see a whole lot. There was a such time when you put the children to bed. After you put the children to bed and before they wake up to go to school in the morning, that's a lot of things that you could be doing. So you don't have to do and you don't have to move him into your house. He don't have a job. He can't help you. Why are you doing that? And that leads me into something else that if you read the news and you look at what's happening in society, that is why the increase of sexual abuse in children. Some men don't even have an interest in you; they want your children. Y'all ain't hearing me today. I don't know what's going on today.
You
Listen,
telling
y'all.
the truth. You telling the truth. You know you telling the truth. And some of us women can testify to it because a lot of us have experienced molestation as children. And our parents were unaware, by friends, by family members, um, told to keep it a secret. Other family members get mad. Why are you gonna send that person to jail? And things like that. And now the child grows up with this baggage and begins to allow themselves to be just what you said, mistreated, ran over, taken advantage of, because they can't relate to how it is to be really loved or protected. So they don't know what protection looks like from a man. They don't know what love and security looks like from a man. They don't know what it looks like because when they were violated at their youngest age, when they told, no one listened, or even if they did believe them, no one protected them. They protected their abuser. And so they saw that. And it's really a shame because they did it out of ignorance and shame as well. But I can tell you this, if something like that happened to my daughters, whoever it would be under the jailhouse. Me, for instance, as a child, I didn't tell. We were not taught about that. So when those things happened, I didn't tell. I didn't tell until I was an adult and I was overheard. That's how my mom found out. And the first thing she said was, "Why didn't you tell me?" First thing she said, "Why didn't you tell me?" She said, "I heard your conversation. Why didn't you tell me?" Because I wasn't taught to tell. So now we're teaching our children to tell.
Well, I see Barbara put here. Hey, Barbara, she said we needed someone like you ladies back in the day, having these type of conversations. Well, and that's why we're having these type conversations now. I will talk about, I'm a victim of abuse as well, and I'll tell you several reasons why the victims don't speak up. Number one, sometimes nobody believes them. I've seen cases on the flip side of this coin that even when a child has disclosed that someone has touched them inappropriately, the parents did not believe them. And I've witnessed that the parent would take the side of the abuser against the child and blame it on the child that the child is breaking up the family. Okay, so there are some reasons why the victim will not talk. Also, the victim is now being made to feel that it's their fault, and that if I tell, then there's a possibility that I may be separated from my parents. Because now DCF is going to get involved. Now the police is going to be involved, and all these things of this nature. And so a child, I think, is very strong because when I think about my abuse and my time as a child, I withheld a lot. I know I should have gone crazy. I know I should have lost my mind. I know I should have been cray. But by the grace of God, I didn't. And so the child is now thinking about the structure of the family. If I tell, then the one person that I know loves me is my mama. I'm going to be separated from her. Y'all not hearing me today. It's a very difficult situation when you begin to talk about a victim. And so, from that perspective, and then when a victim also talks, they have to relive their story, retell their story. It have to be told to the police. It have to be told probably to the parent. They have to go to the school, and it doesn't, and in the system, in the child welfare system, we try to make sure that the child only tells their story a minimum of one time. That's why we have technological advances that records this and things of that nature, so a child doesn't have to continue to tell their story over and over again. And so, not only is it that you were not taught to tell, but now you take on the responsibility that if I do tell, I can see, I'm old enough to know and recognize some repercussions that I might not, somebody might not believe me. Somebody might blame me and say it was my fault, and then you risk the chance of your family being torn apart. So, in order to alleviate all of that, I'll tell you what I did. I stayed single for many, many years due to the fact that I had them two girls. I couldn't even sleep at night. I didn't have no people staying in the house with me sleeping overnight because I decided that, listen, I wanted to protect these girls. I didn't want what happened to me to happen to them. And so how do I alleviate that? I don't have no live-in boyfriends. And so this is what I'm trying to tell women and single parents who are men. You don't always have to have people to move into your house in order to have a relationship. And so when you do that, you're putting your children at risk. Because sometimes the person that you think you know, you really don't know them. They come with a past and they come with baggage. But I will tell you this. I know this is not a popular conversation, but you need to check. You need to do a background check on some people who you that you're in relationship with. You need to know what happened in their past. You need to know why certain things happen to them. And when you find out somebody have a history and a past of abusing children and women and things of that nature, that's your red flag. I want to tell you now, do not ignore the red flags. And when you find out that there is a flag, I recommend you not turn your head and go look the other way. I recommend you do something about it, because not only is it about you, but it's about the children. Number one, we're damaging them, and so we don't have a child problem as much as we have an adult problem. We got some irresponsible adults. We got some irresponsible. Hey, Katrina. Hey, Harvey. How are you? Yes, we got some irresponsible adults. And so I have another. I don't want to stay on that too long. Y'all already about to hit me with a tomato right there. I know that was deep right there, y'all. That was real deep. I have another question here. It says, this is another anonymous question. I may have some questions for next week, y'all. Vita said, oh, and Vita also put something like, and don't let them little children be
And that
sitting,
goes for boys too.
sitting in the men laps.
Just be sitting on people's lap on all kind of don't do it. I love kids and I love to hug on kids, but I don't believe children should be sitting in people's laps.
I cringe every time I see that. I just cringe. Like, it's not my child, and it's not for me to say anything about it, and I just automatically go to praying that the Lord will protect the child, that no harm and danger will come to them. And then I start extending my prayer a little bit, that even if harm and danger do come to them, that the Lord will cover them with grace and mercy, that they'll be able to come out of it. Because let me tell you something, some victims don't make it. Some victims commit suicide. Some victims kill themselves. Some victims wind up in prison. Some victims wind up to have addictions. That's why some people wind up on the streets, on drugs and all this kind of stuff, because they couldn't take what happened to them. I'm telling you that some victims don't make it, and glory be to God for those who did make it. And that's why I feel it's important for victims, when you come to a place of healing and wholeness, to speak out against these things. Amen. To tell your testimony that God did it for you. He made a way for you. He covered you. He protected you even through this difficult time. And so I have another question. It says, I think we're approaching 8 o'clock. But another question says, what's the difference between church hurt and people hurt? It says, what's the difference? Okay, Barbara say, Shabella say, they even send predator alerts. That is true, Shabella. And also, those who have been convicted as, sexual predators, they also have to register. And, you can go to the police department or FDLE on their website, and it would give you a predator within a 5 or 10 mile radius of your home. And so, those are the things that, if you want to be proactive and you want to try to do everything that you can to keep your child safe, those are some things that you can do. And then Barbara say, and sometimes the parents don't want to be ashamed when it's a family member. And Barbara, that is so true. But when I begin to think about that, you don't want to be shamed because it's a family member. That means that everybody who commits a crime need to be held accountable. It doesn't matter who they are. But then now you have to choose between whether it's a family member and your child, and all of the trauma and the pain and the abuse that your child has gone through. I mean, I don't have, I'm not going to talk bad about people. I'm going to touch my nose and mind my business. But I can assure you that anybody who touched my child and I know about it, that's the end of it. I don't care who you are, because it's my responsibility. Those children didn't ask to come into this world. I brought them into the world, and it's my job and it's my responsibility to protect them and make sure that they're safe. And so I don't think that, just like I say, we don't have a child problem, we have a parent problem. And I think we need to go back and review our parenting skills. I think we need to review our parenting skills. What is your charge? What are you supposed to do when it comes to your children? And so therefore, it doesn't matter who it is. If you touch my child, you are wrong. And I can no longer, because if you cared about me as a family member, you never would have touched my child like that. No. The family member didn't care when they touched your child. Well, all of a sudden now you gonna care because the child is hurting and have disclosed that somebody's touching them inappropriately. No, you got to weigh both sides of the coin. And so, the question about what's the difference between church hurt and people hurt. I will say, hurt hurt is hurt. Pain is pain. In the hospital, when you go into the hospital, they give you this chart. What is your pain level from 1 to 10? Do you have, where are you on the scale? Is it a 7? I think once it gets at a 7, they begin to give you some pain medication. But if it's between a 1 through a 6, they just kind of use other alternative methods. But if it's at a 7 through 10, then they begin to give you pain medicine. So when I begin to talk about church hurt and I begin to talk about people hurt, hurt is hurt. When you have been lied to, when you have been betrayed, and when you have been abused, even if it's by someone who is in church, the hurt is still the same. It's still on 11/7 that will probably require you to have some medication. I don't think there's any difference between the church hurt and the people hurt, but I think that we have expectations. Now, here's the thing, we got to get out of these expectations, because when we come to church, we expect people in church not to hurt us. We expect the people who's feeding us, who's helping us, we expect them not to hurt us. And so the biggest thing about the church hurt is that you expected that person not to hurt you. You expected that person to show you the love of Christ. You expected that person to be there whenever you need them. And so what happens when that person begins to hurt you? We begin to shut down and we begin to walk away. But that doesn't change whether you're at a level 7 or a level 8 in your pain magnitude. And so when I begin to talk about that, the one thing that I tell people is to keep your eye on Jesus. Keep your eye on Jesus and keep your eye on the vision of the organization. It doesn't matter if a person have a title, whether they're in church or whether they're on your job. If they hurt you, they hurt you. And so the only thing is when you keep your eye on Jesus, you can come back to church even though that they'll hurt you, because you're not looking from them. You're looking for your help to come from God. And so because we serve a forgiving God, then we can forgive them, because as the Apostle Paul stated in his word, he said that sometimes we do things out of ignorance. And so sometimes you have to understand that people do things out of ignorance, not because they meant it intentionally, because sometimes people don't know any better. And there's a quote that says that hurt people hurt other people. And abusers either become abusers themselves, or they become advocates against people who hurt people. And so therefore the individual themselves have to make a choice. I am a victim, and so I decided to speak out against it. I'm not going to abuse anybody. You know why? Because I know how it feels to be abused. I know how it feels to be betrayed. I know how it feels to be lied to. I know how it feels to be taken advantage of. And so therefore some people become advocates rather than abusers themselves. And so when I begin to talk about the church hurt, I know that there are some people, I've experienced a lot of church hurt. But if I would have allowed church hurt to stop me, I never would have tapped into the perfect will of God. I never would have become the woman that I am today. And so therefore you have to look beyond your expectations, and you have to look beyond the titles of people who you thought shouldn't have hurt you, but they did hurt you. Not only do you got people in church that's hurting you that you never thought would hurt you, but you got peoples in your home that are hurting you that never should have hurt you. You got some spousal abuse going on. You got some domestic violence going on. You got some emotional abuse going on. And so either where we go, people hurt and church hurt kind of equivalates itself to be the same. And the pain level shoots to a 10 and will require pain medication. Hallelujah. That's the best way. Hey, Mr. Leroy, how you doing? Miss Daisy say there's no difference between the two. No, there's not a big difference. I had to look beyond look beyond my pain and look for Jesus Christ. And one of the things that I say to people, people sometimes who are hurt, they're kind of drawn to me because I've experienced a lot of hurt, but I just don't look like what I've gone through. But there's a couple of things that I've learned while I've experienced a lot of pain. And one of those things is that if you can find someone who can love you past your pain so that you can see your need for Jesus Christ, because ultimately God is the only one that can heal. I mean, he can turn our life around. One touch from God and we will have what we call as a scar. Yes, they hurt me. Yes, they did it to me, but I have the scar, and the scar tells me that where I've been. It tells me that I've traveled down a road of abuse and pain, but right now I don't feel it. I know I got a scar. I know I should be hurting. I know it should be affecting me, but there's one thing that Jesus Christ and Jesus Christ only can do, that he can heal you from your wounds. He can heal you from those things that's coming up against your mind. He can heal you for those things that has hurt in your heart. He can heal you from those who have victimized you and abused you. It's only Jesus Christ. And so you can tap into somebody who can love you in your ugliness, who can love you in your bad attitude, who can love you with all the things that your emotions going all over everywhere, so you can see your need for Jesus Christ. Pain is a stagnator. It blocks the purposes and the will of God for your life and for my life as well. And so now, when you come to a place to know that Jesus can heal you of anything, then it just becomes a disappointment, and it's no longer pain when people mistreat you. It becomes a disappointment because I thought better of you. I thought I knew you better than that. I thought you would do right by me. So when you come to a place in your life where you've learned that Jesus Christ can bring you through anything, listen, if you are 25, 30, 40, 50, and 60 and 70 years of life, listen, this is not the first pain that you have. And if you would check back on your faith history, if God brought you through it before, then he can do it again. Glory. He can do it again. Hey, Miss Deborah. Hey, Miss Shy. Okay. So I think we're reaching. I do have a couple of more questions that was asked in actually I got one. Um I got one, and then I think Michelle Shabella is on if she wants to ask her questions. But there's another question that says that, do you feel, these questions came to me anonymously? Do you feel that just because it's 2021, that the female should approach males and it should remain, oh, okay, that female should approach male. I actually talked about that a little bit earlier when I began to talk about, the disparity between males and females. But this is 2021, and I basically say just let some things happen natural. Just be nice. Just learn how to start a conversation piece. I would tell you that some people cannot they cannot obtain friends because they don't know how to be a friend. But you can learn how to be courteous, and you can be nice, and you can speak to everybody, and you can say please, and you can say thank you, and learn to compliment people, because those are conversation pieces that can start up a conversation. I have many men that will compliment me, not because they're trying to go with me. They just say, you're a beautiful lady, or, I like the way you carry yourself, or I just like, what you have on, or something of that nature. And so you just learn to start conversations, learn to compliment people. And it doesn't matter whether you're a male or a female. Um, but if you see something that you're interested in and you don't say anything, this, it might be, you might not see that person again. So I think if we don't have any more questions, I think Shabella did have a couple of questions, and she said, what is one thing you have planned to do once you're no longer affected by this pandemic? I think that's a generalized question to everybody. For me and my perspective, I'm gonna do the same things that I've been doing while I was in the pandemic. The pandemic has not slowed me down from doing some of the things that I wanted to do. I'm not going to create this big bucket list due to the fact that we're out of the pandemic. I mean, but I do see a little traveling in the future or, doing, some outdoor things. But as far as me, mentally and emotionally, I like to keep it in the middle of the road. I mean, I know, many people probably have, this great list of goals of what they want to do after the pandemic. And surely, I think that if we've made it through 2020 and this first quarter of 2021, surely there are many things that you may want to do. But I would say I want to do those things just because I want to do them and not because of the pandemic. So that's my perspective. I'm sure some of you may have a different perspective, but that's just my perspective. And another question is can a male and a female still have an open friendship once they have had a relationship and they are separated? Absolutely. Sure, they can. But one thing I would say is it depends on how that relationship separated. It's not that simple to say you go your way and I go my way, and then somebody may still have feelings. And so my perspective is that if there's still feelings involved, that you take the time to let those feelings resolve, because sometimes that's why you're causing havoc in their new relationship. And sometimes people are trying to sometimes people get out of one relationship and go into another relationship, and then the person still have feelings, and you want to start trouble for their relationships. But if you were friends when you first met, then I think that you could be friends after the relationship is over. And see, different people have different motives of why they come together. And so if you didn't come together out of a friendship from the beginning, it probably is going to be very difficult to have a friendship after that relationship is over. Um, and the second thing that it depends on the maturity level of both individuals. Sometimes it's easier for a man to move forward, and be friends, but whereas the woman, it's not that easy for her because she's emotional, and deep down inside, if she would be honest, she still have feelings if the relationship didn't end in abuse or or something of that nature. She kind of have feelings for that person, and sometimes there's children involved. And when there are children involved, I think is best to be kind to one another, even if you don't agree on everything, so that you can co-parent your children. And just because you're not together, your children should not see you always arguing and fighting and calling names to each other. So for the sake of the children, I would say grow up. You don't have to be friends, but you can learn to be cordial. It's just like, on my job for many years, I've always had a manager's position or a supervisor's position. And I would tell you that almost 55% of my time was about employee conflict, about conflict between amongst adults. I'm not talking about children. I'm talking about conflict amongst adults. I don't like her. She don't like me. I don't like how she's talking to me. All this kind of stuff. And so the one thing I say in talking to people regarding employee conflict and amongst adults is that you don't have to like each other to work together. Everybody needs to know their job roles and their responsibilities. Be kind and nice to one another. You say good morning and you say please and thank you, and you don't have to like each other. So I'll say the same thing as far as when you're in a relationship and you separate and children are involved. Learn how to be cordial to one another in front of those children. Now, I know you think that you're smarter than your children and you think that you're fooling them, but I can tell you that children know more than what you think they know. Children can see, moms when they're sad and when they have a bad day, and dads as well, because children are connected to the umbilical cord of the mother. There's a lot that your children know that's going on with you that you're not telling. As much as I try to mask things as a single parent, sometimes I would go in my room and close the door and cry and tell the kids that I wasn't feeling good, but they knew. They would come in the room. They would do special things for me. They would fix me something to eat, bring me something to drink. They would pull on my arm. Come on, mama. Come on. Come on, mama. Let's go to church. Come on, mama. Let's go to the park. And so I just want to tell you that you're not fooling your children. Your children know, when you're going through, bad times in your relationships, and things of that nature. So you're supposed to be the adult. You're supposed to be the one that's supposed to grow up. And you've graduated from high school. Some of us have graduated from college, and we still act like children. I'm sorry. The way that we handle situations and the way that we handle conflict, we act just like children. And so, how do you expect your child to be able to handle conflict, and you haven't even learned how to handle conflict? So, those are my responses. Hey, Lanika. And Shabella says that a lot of relationships are ruined, but there are some turn out to be good friends. That is true, but it doesn't happen instantly. Time which is slow, but effective. Just like I stated before, when there's feelings involved, you don't just walk. You still want to be in. Now, I'm just gonna say this because I know sometimes people try to be so deep and all that kind of stuff. It's not that deep, because here's the thing: when you walk out of a relationship and you still want to be with the person, but the person has decided to move forward, you can't tell me that you finna sit there and be their friend when you still want to be in the relationship with them. You still want to be a wife. You have not even accepted the fact, it haven't even sunk in yet, that y'all are no longer together. And so, therefore, as long as feelings are involved, you just can't hop and say, okay, I'm going to be friends. There are some that may be friends, but time, or unless before the relationship ended, meaning that somebody had already checked out of the relationship, and by the time they walk out of the relationship, there's no feelings involved. But it still don't mean that feelings that we can be friends due to the fact of how that relationship ended. So those are my responses to all the questions that have been brought before me. I'm trying to see that I miss anything. Sierra, you don't have no question for me tonight? And I got Shonda, and Daisy said she's doing fine. I got Ree. I think Reese in the Bible said, y'all hear that little preach coming out, right? I want y'all to see, y'all heard it, right? It wasn't just me. Y'all hear that little preach coming out. So, Vita, do you have any other things to say? Other than that, if we don't have, I think I answered all the questions that were sent to me anonymously. If you don't want to put a question in the comments, by all means, you can send it to my messenger, and I'll ask that question anonymously, meaning that no one know that you asked that question. It would be a conversation and a topic piece, that I'll go ahead and answer that question. So many people don't want to, put it out there. But then, like you say, when you're talking about life, I'm not saying that I have all the answers, but I can give you a different perspective on how to look at that circumstance or that situation from more than one angle. And I think one problem in society today, I think sometimes when people want to give up and they want to throw in the towel, is because they think that there's only one way to get it done. But I come here to tell you that there's more than one way to get it done. There's more than one way to look at it. You don't have to feel hopeless and despair because you have a circumstance or a situation or something that you're facing. parenting. So I come to just provide a different perspective on the one thing that, and sometimes in some cases, people have told you there was only one way to take care of it. There's only one way to go. Listen, the only way that it is one way is when you go down a dead end road and it says that it's a dead end. That means that you can't go no further. Other than that, in this thing called life, there's too many resources out here. There's too many people moving beyond the things that you say that cannot be done. Listen, here is a different perspective. You don't have to remain stuck like Chuck. You don't have to remain stuck like Chuck in your mind, in your heart, in your circumstance, or in your situation. And I just want to move a little further and say that, listen, many of these things that we talked about tonight are painful because divorce hurts. Divorce hurts, and anytime you divorce, the children are hurt tremendously. How do you pick up? How do you move forward? How do you reach your children? Listen, we have to accept things who are available. There's therapy available, there's counseling available, there's things at school, all types of programs that are available. Do not be afraid to use the tools that you have in order to make your family healthy again so that you can move forward. And so these things we're talking about abuse, we're talking about victims, we're talking about divorce. Listen, these things are painful. And sometimes people get stuck right there. How can I move forward? How can I pick myself up? How can I go on? And so that's why I come here on Friday night to Let's Talk Life, to give you a different perspective. I'm not afraid or ashamed to answer anything for you or to provide you with a different perspective. Amen. So, thank you for joining. Amen. Tag and share for anyone who might need to hear Let's Talk Live, who would like to hear a different perspective. Listen, to have somebody to come on and join in. Listen, you don't have to ask questions on the platform. What you can do is you can send questions beforehand. You can send questions beforehand, and I'll be more than happy to respond to those questions and answers those questions. And it doesn't have to be your situation. I know you say I don't want people to know what I'm going through. I don't want people to know my business and things of that nature, but I don't want to die in my situation either. You don't have to die in your situation. So there's other ways to get the question to me rather than asking the question on the Zoom platform or asking the question here on Facebook Live. There's other ways. You can get the question to me and I can still put it out there and you can still remain anonymous. Amen. Hey, Miss Tina. And so we're ending up right now. I think I've answered all the questions, and I done did a little bit of preaching as well. Hey, Miss Sylvia, thank you for joining. We're about to end, but if you do me a favor, go to YouTube and subscribe to Jakita Williams. Go to YouTube and subscribe to Jakita Williams. All of my live broadcasts, I upload them on YouTube, so you have the opportunity in the privacy of your home. Put it on your television. Go to YouTube and subscribe to Jakita Williams, and all of the broadcasts are on there. Okay, so that would give other people an opportunity to hear and see some of the things that we do here at Universal Truth Ministries. Amen. So I think I've I have answered all of your questions on tonight. Thank you for your participation. I love you and God bless you is my prayer.